Star Kid. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the second class for the trimester. It is your favorite teacher, Mrs. Tessie, and it's our second class for the week. Our topic is classification of objects. But as usual, before we proceed to learn about the classification of objects, it is proper that I find out or we do a proper review of last week's work. By the way, do you remember what we did last week? We learned about the introduction to chemistry, where we said chemistry is the study of matter. Now, we said matter has mass and occupies space. We also looked at some examples of matter like air, water, rock, etc. We further went on to look at the physical and chemical properties of matter. Now, we'll be looking at some other aspects of chemistry before we'll go further to look at classification of objects. Branches of chemistry. We have more than these 3 branches actually. We have basically 5 branches of chemistry, but for your level, I don't want to teach you something that will make your head go so big. So I'll be teaching you just 3 branches of chemistry: organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, and biochemistry. Are you ready? Of course, they are very simple to learn. Organic chemistry studies carbon and carbon compounds. Carbon is one of the elements in the periodic table. I'm sure you know about that, right? Now, anything that has carbon in it is concerned with organic chemistry. The study of things that have carbon is organic chemistry. Do you know that plants and animals have carbon in them? Invariably, we can say organic chemistry is the study of plants and animals. Okay, so now let's look at inorganic chemistry. This is the direct opposite of organic chemistry. Inorganic chemistry studies non-carbon compounds. That means compounds that do not have carbon, and non-living things do not have carbon in them. And this now takes us to biochemistry. Biochemistry studies how living things function. Now, note the difference. Organic chemistry studies living things, but this one studies how living things function. For example, you as a living thing, you've got organs inside you. You walk, you eat, you breathe, you sleep. But how do these things happen? The branch of chemistry that studies how these things happen, how you urinate, how you defecate, is biochemistry. So it studies how various parts of a living thing works. Now we have some applications of chemistry. In other words, some uses of the knowledge of chemistry. Why do we have to learn chemistry at school? Why bother us? It helps us in farming. Modern day farming makes use of chemicals like pesticides. Pesticides kill pests. Herbicides kill herbs like weeds. We use them for weeding. Insecticides kills insects. Then we use fertilizers also, because our lands are not always fertile. So the knowledge of chemistry helps us in the manufacture of all these chemicals, which helps to improve our farming. In the aspect of medicine, how has chemistry helped us? You can guess that, right? Drugs. Every day there is a manufacture of new drugs to tackle new ailments. Before now, people used to die of malaria because there was no cure for malaria. There was no drug for it. But now we have drugs to combat the disease malaria. We even have vaccines every day being introduced. Now we have vaccines for typhoid fever. We have vaccines for this, vaccines for that. It helps to improve the area of medicine. In so many industries, the application of chemistry is appreciated. In the soap industry, in the dye industry, textile industries, the knowledge of chemistry is put into use to produce things that make life easier. Even in cooking, some of you might say, how can chemistry help in cooking? Of course, when you put your materials in a pot, chemical reactions take place. The knowledge of those chemical reactions helps you understand better how to cook and what happens when you are cooking. So yes, the knowledge of chemistry is applied in cooking. Now that we have looked at those applications of chemistry, let's now look at the classification of objects. This is simply the sorting of objects into groups, with each group having its own characteristic properties. So it's like saying, I come to class and I say the tall people stay on this side, short people stay on this side. That is classification. Or I could say, boys stay on this side, girls stay on this side. That also is classification. But in that case, I'm classifying living things, because you, as people I'm talking to, you are living things. But here we are classifying objects. All right. So instead of saying tall people, short people, we talk about length, long and short. Right? Good. Now we'll see some ways to classify. First is classification by size. Some things are big, while some are small. Look at the first blue ball is the biggest, while the smallest green ball is the smallest. You can see there's a gradual reduction in size, right? It's by classification by texture. Is either rough or smooth. Rough or smooth. Some surfaces are rough while others are smooth. Then classification by temperature is either hot or cold. Look at the picture here. The eyes, is it hot or cold? Cold. Sun, is it hot or cold? Hot. The boiling water in the kettle, is it hot or cold? Hot. The ice cream, is it hot or cold? Cold. The beer, is it hot or cold? Cold. The fire, is it hot or cold? Hot. And what's there? The teacup, the tea in the teacup, is it hot or cold? Of course, it is hot. So these are some examples of things that are either hot or cold. I hope you enjoyed the class, but before I go, let's do a brief summary of all that we have learned today so far. We looked at the branches of chemistry. I taught you 3: organic, inorganic, and biochemistry. We looked at some applications of chemistry in farming, in medicine, industries, and in cooking. And then we looked at classification of objects by size, by texture, and by temperature. So thank you for listening. I hope that you attempt the quiz that follow. From me to you, it is a goodbye.